That was a weird way to wake up in the morning.
We're a little bit early, and we're definitely seeing that at 10 a.m. Jamie Jones is way different than 11 a.m. I'm super excited about this because it's raw and unfiltered. Is that kombucha or you got coffee? What's going on there?
This is coffee. This is a little latte.
Oh man,
at home latte, baby.
I met my buddy in New York last weekend for New York Comic Con, and Friday night we went to this really cool restaurant called Vinyl, where they had like 3,000 records, and it was a steakhouse, a small little boutique steakhouse in New York City, and you could request like a side of a record to get played while you were eating dinner and stuff.
That's cool.
It was cool, very swanky, very hipstery. I felt cool. And then like I ordered my ending drink after I eat a big meal is usually a tequila, Kahlua, and coffee. And they brought it out and they like made it martini chilled style, and I was like, "What is this?" Like, I was like, and then I was like, "Can I have warm coffee? Like warm coffee?" And then she proceeds to bring me your cup of coffee for my like after dinner drink, which was like the biggest cup of coffee ever for 11 o'clock at night. And I was like, I just wanted a little
cup. Yeah.
So, I mean, it all worked out in the end, but New York Comic Con was a lot of fun. But also as energizing as it was also emotionally draining because there was like 4 million people. It's the longest time since I've been like shoulder to shoulder, half stepping through a crowd, and now everybody's posting the new thing. The new con normal is 3 days after
everyone got sick.
Yeah, everybody got sick. The new normal now is posting, your positive COVID test after a convention now.
Yeah. That's horrible.
I know. But one of the things, one of the points of conversation of the weekend was there was no Marvel booth, there was no DC booth, there was no Dark Horse booth, and there was a lot of anime and manga going on. And people were like, "Oh no, what's going on with the comic book industry?" And I'm like, "Isn't manga comics?"
I mean, yes, this is true. Well, this goes back. Maybe we had this conversation. I've been having this conversation a lot with people. It feels like when you say something once, it happens 3 times. Yes. So maybe I've just had this conversation 2 other times before this, but in America, we still have this idea, and it's still perpetuated, that the comic book industry is American, like corporate comics, Marvel and DC. And that's just fundamentally in how we talk about it. Even comic strips kind of get put to the side as not what we talk about when we talk about comics, which which blows my mind a little bit. But yeah, it's really interesting. It's just interesting to see the rise of manga as an idea, not even as an idea, but as a product in a lot of these younger creators coming up. All they've read is manga. They've never read a Superman book. They've never read a superhero book. Maybe they go to see Spider-Man when it's, but these are movies and not necessarily comics to a lot of this new generation of people, which I find so interesting. I also find a little upsetting, but I find so interesting because it's an entirely different way of communication. It's a different storytelling style that's become this huge prevalence in our culture. Yeah, period.
Yeah, I mean, like I was listening to creators and listening to people, conversations, and I feel like it should, if somebody is reading manga and they're enjoying it and having a good time, and they're already reading a comic book, it's a different style, but like it shouldn't be a hard sell to make somebody be like, "Hey, come over to this lane."
Well, this is what I think is the hardest sell for American comics. It's not in print. People want to start at the beginning of something and read the entirety of it. We know people have the tolerance to do that, right? People will read all of One Piece, and all of One Piece is still in print. You can start at volume 1. You can start at the beginning. When I was having a conversation with the comic shop owner here in Savannah, Lee, and we were talking about how hard it is. I was like, how do you sell people on issue 100 or 159, right? Some weird number of a superhero, even though it's the start of a new arc. He was like, it's the hardest thing to do, because people want to start at issue 1. They want to start at these hard and fast starting points, that, you know, American comics, we just don't have that. We're still built on these legacy titles. Even if they renumber stuff, they also have the legacy title in it. So that's a weird thing. Like, it's Superman 7 came out today, and it's like technically, or yesterday, and it's technically like Superman 832, right? It's this weird. We still have this legacy numbering because we have to cater to the fans who want the legacy numbering, and then we have to cater to fans who are new, so they have to have a new jumping on point. But is it a true jumping on point, or is it just a
Right.
way to bump numbers, to bump sales a little bit? It's this weird thing that we, as in corporate comics, have not figured out. That's, yeah. But
Uh,
manga being
yes.
translated, and we're getting stuff translated that's already, a lot of it, it's already been finished, right? So then it's being translated, so they have beginning to end, and you can just put the entire collection out, and that works for us over here for whatever. I don't know why. I don't know what happened when. I guess I do know what happened. That's issue 1. That's volume 1. People are able to just pick it up and read it, um,
I would
and
I would
that's become a digestible thing.
I would like to talk to somebody on like the sales number side at Image Comics, because they've been doing their thing where they'll do, issue 1 through 5 or issue 1 through 6, take a break, the
Hmm.
trade will come out, and then
Hmm.
the next issue will come out like a week later, so you could like buy the
Right.
trade and then buy the issue, and then they'll do another 6
Yeah.
issues trade that. And I
Yeah.
wonder,
They're banking on FOMO, right? That that's the well. Saga started that. That was the saga. That's saga. They call that saga uh, turnaround or whatever.
right.
But that's just because that's the way Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples worked, and it worked. So now every book has to do that, except for Savage Dragon, because and
Yeah.
Spawn, because they can just do whatever they want.
Right.
I don't know how those numbers work. I don't have an
Nah.
answer for you, but it is an interesting thing. It's like, is that competing? Is that making the same kind of dent as uh, manga? I think the other thing is, we live in a culture now, in a society now, that values being able to just binge everything.
Yeah.
So having to wait 100 pages of a book to be done before it gets collected into a hardcover or a soft cover, that you're going to spend 40-50 bucks on at a Marvel or DC, um, or you can get a 300 page 3-in-1 collection of Dragon Ball, and you can read all of it, and these are $15, right?
Yeah. So there's
These are
definitely, yeah.
10.
Yeah.
So there's a cost thing to it. There's an idea that I don't have to wait as much. And then you do see it now, because people are like, oh man, I'm waiting for the next One Piece. I've read every One Piece. It's like, welcome to comics, baby. You got to wait
Yeah.
for people to finish stuff. But we don't have that anymore, right? We're living in an era where the new Stranger Things comes out and you can watch every episode immediately. I don't know why we have that binge culture thing. Man, I grew up in the '90s. You had to watch TV. you like if I wanted to watch the new Digimon, I had to be up at night,
I know, I
up
know.
at the TV on Saturday morning to watch the new Digimon, and I did. And there is a certain kind of like pride that you felt when you didn't miss it.
I'm trying to see if I have a book because I met some people at Vault, and I talked to Vault. Is it Vault? And I don't know where I put the book. It's got to be around here somewhere. Yeah, like Valiant was there, and they were sharing like a small booth with like 3 other publishers, and a guy with a New York accent just like threw this book at me. So I don't know what's going on with Valiant. So he's like, here, just take this. And I was like, all right. I am excited about this though. Coming out from Mad Cave. This was always like a weird anime.
It's crazy to me. This is not a new idea or new thing that these smaller publishers get these kind of legacy titles and start licensing, like get the license to these bigger stuff. I mean, Dynamite used to have all of the Gold Key stuff, all of
Right.
the Gold Key characters. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It's weird that these smaller publishers get these licenses and then try to reinvigorate stuff. I don't know, but Gachamon's such a weird. Yes.
I'm super excited about this.
Why does Mad Cave have Dick Tracy?
I know.
I'm okay with it. Why? How did they pull those strings? Why are they getting the license? And why is when because IDW used to have the license, and those books look great. Like the people that they got to, Rich Tommaso did Dick Tracy comics for IDW. They look
really?
great. Yeah, yeah, they look great. They're fantastic. But why?
Yeah.
Why?
I didn't even know that I thought this was like the first time that like they've tried to do like I've seen some old school Dick Tracy comic books from like the 80s that were like black and white that I remember, but I didn't think anybody else picked this up.
No,
And
they like the Clue comic book that came out not too long ago. There's some weird licensing stuff that's going on in comics, and it seems like like they're trying to capitalize on stuff. But at IDW, they've got like crazy good cartoonists to do the Clue comic book, and like Rich Tommaso's a brilliant cartoonist, and he was doing Dick Tracy. It was like these are good, weird, for lack of a better term, indie comics with these major properties behind.
yeah.
And
No, like yeah,
and I think I wondered why these weren't selling as big in numbers. But it's like, who's actually reading indie comics? Nobody, right? It's a weird thing.
And have you ever been to New York Comic Con?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's been a minute, but
I was really surprised that Artist Alley was in the basement. I mean, it's a gorgeous building, but they're still in the basement. They're in the basement of the building.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to walk around Artist Alley. It was busy and stuff, but everybody now charges for autographs.
Mm-hmm.
So like my friend wanted to meet Jeff Johns and Gary Frank were doing a thing. So he had to buy a trade to get a signature, so he bought a trade and stuff. But if you didn't want to buy a trade, they were charging for signatures and stuff. So
yeah.
the evolution of the higher end of Artist Alley now is very interesting because everybody there's three companies now that handle creators. Like
Yeah,
there's Sketch something. Like I was looking at all the posters that and I guess they just like, oh, this is my crew
yeah,
of a stable of people, and we charge for autographs, and we get a cut, kind of thing now. But there's like
yeah,
three different companies that do that now, and that's I don't know. I don't know how I feel about
yeah.
that
You
one.
have representation. I think I mean, for the creator side of it, it seems like it's good. I don't know. I don't have a rep, but uh, yeah, it's odd. It's odd, right? Like if you seems like the second you're signed with a company, and there are these groups for smaller, uh, for more indie side of stuff. Inky Knuckles, I have a friend who just signed with them, and they do really well because now you have representation, and the representation has a pot of people that buy anything from that pot of people. It's similar to a gallery in that sense. It's now all online, but if you trust your gallery rep, or why wouldn't you trust the next person they bring onto their stable of people? And like sketch art has a lot of the guys, a lot of writers who are writing. Like I feel like if you write for Batman, you're signed with
Yeah,
sketch art,
yeah, you're
right?
definitely saying that.
That's the place, and that is nice. I think for fans to know who is being repped by each place, but does it what is it really doing? I don't know,
Right.
right?
Well,
Maybe
so
it's
that
protecting the artist,
so,
maybe it's protecting the
yeah,
idea of CGC and that whole, the grading side of uh my signature is now worth something
right. Well,
versus
that's
my versus like the art that you make is not worth as much as your signature is. And that's a weird thing. That's a weird thing for me to wrap my mind around.
right. So on one hand, like I'm fully behind this because like at any given second, these guys could be out, and so you got to make as much money as possible because like there's nobody looking out for you at all in this industry, and like healthcare is not cheap, all that stuff. So like
Right.
I totally understand like an artist being like, okay, this is what I charge, this is what's going on, here it is, because they have to take care of themselves financially and the future and everything like that. On the other end, I'm like, as a fan, like, and we keep complaining about growing the industry or lack of growing the industry, you know, I totally remember in like 91, 92, you know, meeting murderers row of image creators and like Jim Lee, Joe Quesada, Eric Larson, McFarlane, and Philly, and just being like, oh shit, I just met everybody, and like I'm gonna like love these guys to the rest of my day because like I did this, and so this is where
Right.
I'll give props to Gene Ha. He was giving
Hmm.
out free sketches to kids on Sunday,
Yes.
and I
Yeah.
was like, oh, I wish I was 12.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And that's the kind of thing. Like, and Gene Ha being able to do that is extremely. I guess now in this like world, super privileged, but also like it is a stand against something, right? Like
Right.
he is making a a point to foster new fans. And I think that's the main thing. Maybe this going back to uh, manga versus American comic books. Um, we do a horrible job at fostering new fans. We don't keep things in print. People want to read Spider-Man 1. They want to read the first thing of Spider-Man. Good luck. Good luck finding a book that's in print that has the first Spider-Man. Now, recently they've been putting out, or I don't even know if it's going to be an ongoing series, but Penguin has been putting out those. Is it Penguin or Abrams? I don't remember.
I want to say
these
I wanted to say Penguin Random House. Like it was like
yeah, well, it is Penguin Random House.
Yeah.
But they've been putting out the collections of the earlier
and those books look
superhero
nice.
stuff. They're great. They're great looking books. They've got like gold foiling on the edge, and they're gorgeous. They're gorgeous books. They're also pretty cheap. They're easy entry points. Are they going to continue on the line, or are they just doing the first like 12 issues? I don't know. But
I did see at the airport. I did see Daredevil Born Again by them.
Oh, cool. So they're going, which is probably the best way to do this. Well, I guess Born Again is the new name of the TV show, so maybe they're not doing it that way. But Fantagraphics has been putting out the Donald Duck, Carl Barks line, the Duck stuff. They did not start with Volume 1. They started with Volume like 12, because that's the one with that's like the most famous story. So putting out a book with this has the collections of the most famous Duck stories. Now it is a little different because those are one and done stories, but having that be the big book that's going to kind of bankroll the rest of the 27 volumes of Donald and Scrooge comics, I find really interesting. I think that's a great idea. Get a book that's going to be your perennial seller. Get a book that's going to be the one. Born Again, I think you can constantly publish the Frank Miller stuff, right? Just talking Daredevil, or go to Spider-Man. Look at the runs that are. Spider-Man's a little bit different because I feel like you could constantly just put the Stan and Ditko stuff constantly,
right?
That stuff could always be in print, and it's relevant and it's good, and the art's phenomenal. So it's weird. It's weirder, and maybe this is another problem. It's weirder than the stuff that Spider-Man does now. It's a weirder look. And maybe people don't want to read that stuff. Maybe people actually don't want to read original Spider-Man stuff.
I always
because
thought
it evolves so heavily over a short period of time, because it goes from Ditko to Romita. Like that's a jump. That's a jump and a half stylistically. But I even think Spider-Man has these great big, just like flash in the pan. This is a really different style. We're doing something really different with Spider-Man that I don't know what the character is being based off of. Say the movies, for instance. Who is
Tobey Maguire?
What is Tom Holland's Spider-Man? Right? Like it's where in the lineup of artists are they pulling from? Who's their main influence? What's the main influence on this character? And maybe Spider-Man, like Batman, has become so ubiquitous with other things that it doesn't matter what their actual origin or character is.
Well, Spider-Man
can just be whatever.
Spider-Man's an interesting title because I'm like looking at it and I'm like, if I was thinking of there's Daredevil Born Again, and Batman's got tons of them, like Long Halloween, Year One, all these different moments in the series where Spider-Man only has Kraven's Last Hunt as a seminal 6-issue, this is where we did some cool stuff. Everything else is it's soap opera, so it lasts forever.
Right. I think that's a difference between characters born out of the Golden Age and characters born out of the Silver Age. This is a really weird way to cut split hairs, but it seems to they built books back in the Golden Age as kind of one and done stories. Stories didn't go on for it was this is the adventure of Spider-Man, or this is the adventure of Superman doing a thing, and then it gets resolved in that issue. Don't worry if you miss next issue, it doesn't matter. But with higher sales rates and higher marketing, we started writing comics as these long form things. Strips have the same kind of idea, right? Where you had adventure strips forever. And then in the 50s, you get Peanuts. Peanuts changes everything. It changes, like, you read books about these strips, and the only adventure strips left once Peanuts happens are strips that have been that that were legacy. They were the only ones. So you still had Steve Canyon, right? That was kind of it. And you still had Prince Valiant. Sometimes, like, maybe you still had Prince Valiant if your paper wanted to pay for a full page. They weren't doing half Prince Valiant pages. This is because Peanuts was 4 perfect panels. You could cut it up and put it wherever, and you could do small, you could do big. That was the way that stuff worked. The same time period, right? You have Silver Age comics coming in and going, well, now we have this ability to do these longer form stories. It's weird how they flipped, right? You had strips that were telling these long form kind of dramatic narratives from day to day, and then we switch over into comic books, and they're doing these now they're starting to do these long form stories day to day or month to month, and it's the slow burn of that is super rewarding. But is that the best way to go? Is that the best way to do? I've been thinking about this a lot just in my work and personally, but is that the best way to do a longer form work? Is it best way to do a longer form work serialized, or is it just to do it in a chunk?
Right.
And then if you want to do a long form serialization, strips are perfect for that. That's why web comics are doing so well right now, because people like reading something daily, weekly, and you can get a really small amount of digestion quicker. I think that's another reason why manga does really well, is it's a lot of story content quicker than a month. I think monthly comics is the bad thing. I think we should either do weekly, or we should do like every other week, or wait for the trade. I think we have a weird, I think the quality of books would go up. I think the quality of superhero books would go up. That's a big upfront cost for these companies, and maybe not as much work for cartoonists or the artists and writers that are constantly putting out work, but not in like the let's say B-list talent. You have the A-listers that are just like, they can do whatever they want, and most of them go off and do whatever they want anywhere but Marvel and DC. And then you have that second tier putting out great comics, but maybe they just don't have the name recognition as Jeff Johns or Jim Lee. And I think a lot of times those guys would benefit by just being able to do, here's 150 pages of a comic I wrote, give it to an artist, have it do a thing, and then put out a trade. I think you'd find a lot more. I think it would be higher quality, because the grind is. The more I think about it, I love quick comics. I love fast comics, but I think the grind of having to work to a certain deadline on a every 5-week basis, every 4-week basis is detrimental. it's almost too much time. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Uh, it's every 4 weeks is too much time. Every week is not enough time, but you're working, but it's coming out. And I think you see now more than ever with web comics, people don't care if it's in color. The new readership doesn't care if it's in color. Manga, no, none of that's in color, right? So young readers don't care if it's in color. I think young readers are also more forgiving if the art isn't perfect, um, than older readers are. I think what this really comes down to, why is manga, why does Viz, why does all of these manga places, and why do Penguin Random House and these web comics that are being published by these larger public publishers, why do they have a presence at New York Comic Con and the American comic book corporations don't have a place there? Is because maybe the readership and fandom that is starting to be more prevalent than superhero stuff are the readers of they're trying to cater New York Comic Con to the younger generation of readers. And those people aren't sticking with superhero comics because they seem old. They seem like a thing that your parents read, which is a weird thing. And we try to update this all the time. But when you have a bunch of 40-year-old guys writing for 40-year-old guys about characters that are 40-year-old guys, that's what superhero comics is now, right? Like that
Yeah.
is what superhero comics is.
Yeah. I was thinking like, this came up to me because like I hearing the chatter of like, oh, we have all these movies and superhero movies are making more money and there's more people seeing them and all this other stuff and like why doesn't that not translate into comic book sales? And I was like, wait a second, I've seen every Tom Clancy movie. I love them. And I watched the
You've never
series.
read a Tom
I've never
Clancy
read
book.
a Tom
Exactly.
Clancy
Right.
movie.
Right. Exactly. That is an elevated thought. And that's like um when I talk to people about Batman, people my age, a lot of people haven't read Batman. Everyone's seen that television show. Everyone
Yeah.
saw the animated series. It was the best thing. It is still, in my opinion, the best Batman, right? That is what Batman should be. It is a guy in a mask doing weird things.
Yeah.
Like we don't need. I also, you know, the constant push of making these characters that are, I think I said this last time, um, these are characters written for children. They were created for children. That's where they thrive. Um, there was a recent interview on Cartoonist Kayfabe with Matt Wagner, and he said he was like, "Oh, I want to do a Superman book, but it would have to be Superman set in like the 40s. It would have to be a time period Superman book." And he said, and I tend to agree with him on this, these characters are the product of the time period that they were made in. Updating them doesn't seem to work. Why does, the glasses thing isn't a problem in Superman in the 40s? There are no pictures. Right?
Right.
People weren't
Yeah.
walking around with cameras taking pictures of everything. Um, it's that kind of thought process that like not only is that a character built for the 40s, but it's also built for kids of the 40s. That's the thing that I think we're missing a lot in the superhero comics now, and just not even comics, everything. How many R-rated Batmans do we need to have before we realize Batman worked best when he was a children's cartoon, right? And you're able to do things in a children's cartoon. You can play with the death. You can play with these kind of lofty themes, but at the end of the day, you've got good guy versus bad guy, and that becomes, and the good guy is going to triumph. That's that's why these characters work, because fundamentally they have to work that way. Because that's how they were built. That's how they're built. I don't need Batman to like do a heel turn for it to be interesting. I don't need Batman to have a problem in a marriage, because that's not a kid thing.
Right.
That's not a relatable kid thing. I've got a pitch for Legion of Superheroes. This is my Jamie Jones real nerd hat thing. Legion of Superheroes is my favorite thing, and I once talked to people at DC, and I said, they asked me what book I would like to do. I said, oh, I'd love to do Legion of Superheroes, and they said to me, it's a shame that book doesn't sell. In the 80s, Legion of Superheroes had 2 books. They sold 2 books a month. That's insane. That's an insane amount of work. They had 2 different teams. It was X-Men. It was X-Men level of like, we have these characters, they're doing things. We have tons of these comics. It was always in print. Tons of characters. What happened was when when New 52 kind of rolled around, and a little bit before that, they start selling Legion of Superheroes as a teenage book, which it hasn't been a teenage book since the 80s. They were adults. They were adults dealing with adult things. They're married, they have children. When most of your teenage heroes are in their late 20s and they're married with children, you don't have a teenage book anymore. You have a soap opera book for 20-year-olds,
Yeah.
which I think could sell and would sell, but that's not, you don't have a teenage book anymore. Jim Shooter was a writer when he was 14. The characters were 14 when Jim Shooter was 14. Guess what? They age. When Jim Shooter turns 15, all those characters are now 15. When they turned 16, he grew up, he made those characters grow. And that is fundamentally like what those books are about. It's this constant growth of these characters. You listen to Claremont talk about X-Men, and that, like, why do we have the new X-Men? How long can the new X-Men or the new mutants be the new mutants?
Yeah.
No, they've been around forever. It's been 30 years. They're not new mutants anymore. Sorry, Cannonball is not a new mutant. He's been on the X-Men for way too long. Give me new mutants.
One of my favorite comic strips was For Better For Worse, because everybody everybody aged, and
Yeah,
and they grew up. And I remember, like, I missed, I because comic strips aren't prevalent long around as much. And I remember I'd go home at the holidays, because I didn't get a newspaper when I was left in my house, and I would read For Better For Worse at the holidays, and see where everybody was. And it was such an engaging kind of,
dude,
and
Love
kind
and
of strip.
Rockets does that, and it's gorgeous. You
Yeah.
have these characters aging and growing, and their stories are interesting, and you can pick up a Jaime Hernandez comic now, and Maggie's like in her 50s, or you can go and read when Maggie's 20. It doesn't matter. Do you need to read the stuff that when she was 20 and to read the stuff that she was 50? No, I've met people who were 50 and I didn't know anything about them in their 20s. You evolve as a person, you grow as a person. That's really interesting. That's maybe how we should be writing superhero comics, to compete with the stuff that you have, to compete with manga and the stuff that you can read book 1 and go all the way through, right? We have legacy characters that are able to pass through and be generational and have versions of these characters that matter. But like, why shouldn't Miles Morales just be Spider-Man?
Right.
If this is what generationally, this is what is responding. Those movies are fantastic. Let's just allow him to be Spider-Man. Does Peter Parker always have to be Spider-Man? You know, does Barry Allen always have to be the Flash? No, and he wasn't for a really long time. And then we brought him back. And I love Barry Allen, but we brought him back.
I don't love Barry Allen because he wasn't like Wally West was always my Flash. And so when they brought him back, I'm like, who the hell is this guy? This guy's been dead.
Why would you care? Why would you care?
Like the last time I saw him, he died. Then I got my Flash. And so then we got brought. But okay, so Tim Drake is a prime example for me. Like he came out when I was right before I was a freshman in high school. And I was like, holy shit, I have my Robin. Like, you know, and I was like, this is amazing. And now I'm like, I'm going to be 47. And I think Tim Drake maybe aged 2 years. I'm like, what happened here?
And I'm okay with, this is, I'm not saying that they need to age, but they do need to change. And again, this is another reason why we just have a lot of 40-year-old guys writing for 40-year-old guys. We don't consider the younger reader. Tim Drake Robin could probably be a high-selling book. Look at the success of Nightwing. Like, that is a character that is now playing against the age. Like, you have a character that people love, who people didn't give two F's about 20 years ago. Nobody cared about Nightwing, but now Nightwing's the coolest character because they're doing all these things. It's like, we can just do whatever we want with Nightwing. We're gonna put him on a boat. Let's put him. Hey, guess what? Nightwing's a pirate now. And you're like, that makes sense. No, at no point does it never not make sense for Nightwing. Nightwing's a good, I think the best example of this kind of character is like, we can put him, he's...
if he goes to space next arc, I mean, here we go. You know what I mean?
He goes to space. Yeah, it doesn't matter. He's kind of the only quintessential pulp character we've got right now, which is weird that this sidekick, I guess it makes sense though. We have a sidekick who now is this pulp character icon. Like he's Flash Gordon. Nightwing's Flash Gordon now. I'm okay with that. I want that. Change up the costume. We give Nightwing a new costume every now and then. I think it looks great. Or we just don't put him in a costume. He's just wearing normal clothes and he's got the domino mask. Great. Nobody questions it. That's good. That's good storytelling. If these are the things that we're doing, Tom Taylor can do whatever he wants.
No, Tom Taylor. I mean, because he was like, I want to do zombies. I want to do a zombie DC universe, and they let him go wild. Like they've let Tom like do crazy stuff, and now I think he's doing an Elseworld title, and that was like
let him do whatever he wants.
Yeah,
he gets it. He gets superheroes. He gets it. He is, I think, the prime example of a guy he's like a 40-year-old guy. He's not writing for 40-year-old men. He's the one, he's the one guy. He gets it. And I want more people to get it. I spent a lot of time.
He's also not from this country. Like he's from, I don't want to, he's from either New Zealand or Australia. I probably should just Google this before I say it. But like
we can just say down under.
Down under. I mean, I watched Bluey. Bluey is probably a masterclass in writing and storytelling. Have you watched Bluey?
No, I don't have children.
No, okay. From a storytelling element, oh my god, these are 7-minute episodes, and they tell so much story and imagination in these stupid 7-minute episodes, and it's bonkers good. Just from like, I'll have my ear, and I'm like, wait a second, did they just talk about death and like all these other things? Like a bird dies and the kid finds a bird, and it dies, and they kind of like go through the whole conversation of that. Like, but it's not like a parent talking about death. It's like a kid with an imagination and stuff like that.
Yeah, figuring things out, allowing it doesn't talk down to children.
No.
Yeah, that's great.
Again, if you want storytelling inspiration, like Bluey's where it's at.
Bluey.
I'm
Okay.
telling you, man.
I'm not doubting you. I'm not doubting you at all. I've heard a lot of good things about this show.
I gotta end on this, but because I gotta go pick up my kids. I
Yeah.
did a trunk or treat. Do you know what trunk or treat is?
It's like a trick or treat out of your trunk. It's
Right, you
tailgating for trick
decorate.
or treating.
Yeah, you decorate your trunk, and then the kids come around. We did it for school, and this like I saw all the kids come up, and there was a lot of ninjas because apparently that was the Costco costume that was like everybody bought. But then this girl comes up, and I'm like, "Hey, are you Toft?" And she's like, "What?" I'm like, "Are you Toft from Avatar?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Boom!" I gave her a big fist pump. But like me, this giant 45-year-old was like, she was like my favorite character in
Yeah.
Avatar, and I was so excited when I saw her. And that was the other thing. Like when New York Comic Con, I saw this girl, and she's like hugging this stuffed animal, and she's probably in 20s, 30s, somewhere in that range, and she's just like smiling and cuddling, and I'm like, is that Appa? Are you hugging Appa? Like she had bought like this giant Appa stuffed
Yeah.
animal. Again, Avatar's another great storytelling, but series. So, but man, I really enjoyed this episode. This was a lot of fun.
Good. Yeah, this was shorter. I feel like I woke up during the conversation, so
But
good.
I'm gonna pop this up, but give Jamie a follow on all his fun social medias. He's on Instagram doing all those fun things. And you do Twitch still? You doing that?
I haven't in a bit, mainly because internet and like just
Life.
time in
Yeah.
life.
No, that's
But
that's a huge thing. But no, will you have your Substack? Will you do your daily comic strip?
yes,
That's what we
so
should be
go.
slinging.
Yeah, that is what I should be slinging always. It's bowtiepress.substack.com. Sign up, get your daily dose of comic strip goodness, of action adventure comic strip goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and I mean, I didn't show it to you, but Mad Cave got Flash Gordon too. So
Why'd they go with the movie Flash Gordon?
I don't know.
Why?
Ming the Merciless. I don't know.
Why'd they go with movie version?
You could
Go with. There's so many cool things.
you could
Flash
do
Gordon's
whatever you
so
want.
cool.
Yeah, you can do
You
whatever you want.
can. Why are we selling it as a movie thing? I love the movie. Don't get me wrong. The movie's fantastic, but that's not the best. Like Flash Gordon's so cool. he's so cool. Just do some cool things with Flash Gordon.
All right, that's the quote.
Matt
That's the
Cave.
quote.
Do something cool with Flash Gordon, please.
Take care, guys.
See ya.